following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Every day, citizens around the country are faced with new dilemmas. Dilemmas that affect them profoundly. Whether it's injustice, discrimination, falling through the cracks, scandals and cronyism, balances of power, ethics, religious freedoms, state versus citizens, and unfunded mandates, and the list goes on and on and on. Welcome to Speak Up. It's directed at those who have fallen through the cracks, and it gives them a voice. It's your turn to speak up, to stand up and fight back. Welcome to Speak Up. I'm Kevin Avard, your host. Today we're going to be interviewing another candidate for State Representative Kimberly Rice from District 37 in the Hudson-Pelham area.
Correct.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Now, I know you because we had your husband here on the show at one time,
Yep.
And Michael Rice.
Yep.
And that was an interesting show. It had to do with a family court issue where he basically lost some of his parental rights.
Exactly.
And that's a lot of people, unless you've gone through it, you don't understand how you can possibly be abused by the system that is supposed to be protecting you and looking out for the children's best interest. And this is why you're running, or
this is one of the reasons I'm running.
Okay.
That's the whole reason I started to get more involved in politics, mm-hmm. and really becoming aware of what was going on around us, and just watching the government encroach more and more into our everyday lives, and the states losing less and less local and state control. And I just want to stop that. Too much government, to me, is not a good thing. Less is more. Right.
And one of the things that a lot of people are really concerned about, I was talking to Greg Moore from the American for Prosperity. He was just recently on a recent program. People are really concerned about their buying power and how it's becoming less and less and less because products are getting more expensive. And we're not attracting new businesses to New Hampshire.
Number one, we don't have a tax rate that competes with Massachusetts. So mm-hmm. why would you come here when you can go to Massachusetts and have, lesser taxes?
Which is an odd thing to hear.
Yes, I know. Mm-hmm. And then also, so many regulations. We're regulating businesses to death. It's costing them too much money. It's not feasible to come here and open a business.
So how's the campaign going, by the way?
It's going very well. It's up and coming and expanding, and it's an exciting and very busy time.
I see a lot of people are getting active. They're putting up your signs. You're posting them on the Facebook page.
Yeah. I try to take a picture of them and post it on the page so everyone gets to know their neighbors.
What is the hardest thing about running a campaign?
Finding the time. Uh-huh. When you're working full time, as I am right now, it's become very time consuming. Plus, I have a family and a husband also.
Right.
So that's I'm finding the hardest part.
Getting out, meeting the people, knocking on the doors, yep. And I noticed that the Haas families, they're pushing out your campaign. They're talking about fundraisings for you.
Yeah.
To me, that seems to be one of the hardest things: is asking people for $10, $25. But you're sacrificing a lot when you get up there.
I understand that, but I also see it as a privilege. Mm-hmm. I think that it would be just such a privilege to be able to serve and to represent constituents and my neighbors. Mm-hmm. People that are just like me, that are so concerned about the state, the city, and the town, and what's happening around them.
Right. And there is a lot of concern. I mean, you recently had the Medicaid expansion. You have, of course, the Obamacare. That still hasn't hit full.
People are going to be in for a lot of sticker shock when it comes, especially the employer mandate. There, mm-hmm. yet again, is another hit to small business in this state.
Right.
And I just see it's just not feasible.
What are you hearing from your constituents? What are you hearing when you're actually out there out on the campaign? What are people saying? What are they concerned about?
People are really concerned about their Second Amendment rights. I've talked to a lot of people that, you know, wanted to make sure I was, you know, the pro-Second Amendment, which I absolutely am. They are concerned about jobs. They're just not out there. You know, I for one, have 2 daughters who work in Massachusetts because they can't get a job in this state, and they both have college degrees. So those are, you know, a lot of the concerns that are seeing. Plus, they just want to make sure that there's no broad-based tax passed, no state income tax, no sales tax, you know, because we're going to be taxed to death.
Oh, recently there's a 23% gas tax.
Yeah.
It's 4 cents. You know, people say, well, it's only 4 cents. But people are counting pennies these days.
They are, and that's just the state tax. Then you get the federal tax. You know, on top of that, it just keeps rising and rising. Pretty soon, nobody's going to be able to afford to drive anywhere.
Right. Have you talked to any of the protesters, by the way, from Market Basket? Have you seen any of them out?
I actually have a customer who works for them. And, you know, I'm so proud of them.
Yeah.
I really am.
They're not union. They're doing this.
Well, if they were union, this might not be happening.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that because they're not union, they're just a group of people who are so passionate about their jobs and the man that they worked for. And I think what a role model it would be for, you know, every business to have a boss they loved that much and that loved them, that was genuinely concerned for their well-being also.
Yeah, they're sticking out. They're out in the rain. You can hear as you drive by Market Basket, people are honking the horns.
I actually got in my car one day and drove by just so I could honk. I just wanted them to know that I supported them. You know what I mean? I don't have the time to go and stand there because I am so busy. But I do want them to know that, you know, I fully support them, as I know many others do.
Oh, yeah. And I think, you know, you can see them, they're jumping to cheer when you honk the horns. And you know, it is part of the community. And there's no union bosses pushing them to do this. They're doing this out of the love of their heart. This is all free will.
Exactly.
And they're taking it on the chin because they believe in something. I believe it was, you know, Arthur T. Basically, he goes there, he knows their names, he shakes their hands, he goes to work, he knows his business, he's on top of it. That's a true businessman.
Absolutely.
And he's created that environment.
I mean, I've read stories, you know, where, you know, families have experienced loss, and he's right there. He's, you know, telling them, take the time you need, and paying them while they're away. You know, he just is really, truly a man of the people, I believe.
I found a little secret about this. Remember that Storm Sandy?
Yes.
He actually was a very big, took a big part in helping out during that storm.
I'm not surprised.
He didn't splash it over the media. You know, truckloads of food went down there and helped out. Didn't ask for anything in return. He's doing his civic duty and helping out. And that goes a long way. That's just, your heart just says, win, man, win.
It does, and I, as a customer, have been boycotting Market Basket. I won't go, and it's not because there's no food on the shelves.
And it's not because it's a good store.
I'm not going because these are what the workers need.
Yeah.
They need to show that we support them and we have their back, and that we as customers want Arthur T. back also.
Right.
You know, he did the 4% discount. You know, I have a large family. It's killing me to shop at the competitors. You know.
I know.
But
Right.
you know, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe I'll lose a couple pounds. Who knows?
No. I know. You get that sticker shock when you're looking at the peanut butter, but a lot of people are concerned. They're concerned about taxes. They're concerned about consumer goods going up, gas taxes going up, the Medicaid expansion, the potential. Are you for any kind of an income tax?
No.
Okay.
No
right.
broad-based tax.
Nothing. Good.
Nothing.
Because it looks like we might be under that threat because of this Medicaid expansion.
Because of this Medicaid expansion, and I don't think that they looked at the long view of things, the big picture,
right,
so to speak, and I don't think we'll see that money from the federal government.
No.
I mean, and even if we do, we're still paying taxes for that.
Right.
It's not like it's free. No, we pay taxes into that.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if somebody made a deal about gambling. I'm not sure what they were thinking, but the Senate should have put a little damper on this, and it didn't. So I think that's why a lot of people are running, and we applaud you for running. How can people get in touch with you to help you out with your campaign?
I have a Facebook page. It's Kim with number 4 NH. I'm on Twitter at Kim with the number 4, NH.
Okay.
And I also have, my email address is Kim with the number 4, NH, Kim for, New Hampshire State Rep @gmail.com.
Well, we applaud you for running, and we wish you the best.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to be right back with our next guest.
Amherst from A1. We need PD here right now, please. Get me PD now! No, get me PD now!
Things happen very, very, very quickly.
If the parent isn't proven unfit, a parent should have the rights to their child.
So when the day came that I was supposed to get her back, I didn't know where he was.
They are the judge, they are the jury.
I went to give him a hug and a kiss to tell him that everything was going to be all right.
Basically, seen it all. This one caught you by surprise.
It was psychologically difficult.
What I want to do is show people that this is organized crime.
We are very uncomfortable.
My husband is beside himself.
This is a trained situation here.
Bullying to bizarre to dangerous.
The scary part was,
Because you don't know what the end is.
Hello, my name is Kevin Avard, host of Speak Up TV. If you would like to be a guest on Speak Up, please contact me at speakupnh@gmail.com. We'll help you be heard. And we're back with our next guest, Maureen Mooney. Welcome. Is it Mooney?
Yes.
Is it still Mooney?
Still Mooney,
Still
yes.
Mooney. Okay. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's a pleasure to be on the show, and I'm so glad you invited me. Actually, 2 years ago,
Right.
in 2012, I remember
got it.
running into you all over Nashua on the
Wonderful.
presidential campaign trail, and
Yeah.
you invited me on the show, and here we are 2 years later, and I'm glad to be a guest.
Yes.
And a lot we have to talk about, as I'm a candidate now for the state Senate, as are you.
And District 11.
District 11.
Now, what is District 11?
Your neighbor.
Yes.
And,
in Hollis, Merrimack. You're not in Hollis area.
No. District 11 consists of 4 towns and 4 towns only. It's Merrimack, Milford, Amherst, and Wilton. So you get on 101 and you drive west from Merrimack and you've hit every town in the district.
Right.
It's very compact. A lot of great people live within the district, a lot of hardworking citizens of this state, and people who are very interested in not only the state Senate race, but the future of their congressional districts and our state as well, the direction of our state.
What made you decide to run?
Several factors, Kevin. I'm glad you asked that. First of all, I was encouraged to run. Peter Bragdon held the seat
Right.
prior to it being vacant now. He resigned the seat just this past May. And when he resigned, I received multiple telephone calls from people throughout the district encouraging me to run. So I thought this is something to look at if that
Right.
many people are interested in a
Especially
Mooney.
when the Senate President, or former Senate President,
Right.
takes an interest in you.
Exactly. Well, I mean, others in the district called to encourage me to run.
Right.
Peter Bragdon was not one of them,
Oh.
but others encouraged me to
Oh,
run.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
misunderstood you.
No,
Okay.
no, residents within the district,
Okay.
not Peter himself. So then I thought, this is something to look at if all of these people that I know and so forth are encouraging me to run for the state Senate this year. So I went on a month-long talking tour, really, and a listening tour. I would listen to people. I talked to people I know, people I don't know, current members of the House, former members of the House that I served with. I would be at King Cone sometimes just talking to residents there, getting their ice cream and asking them, what do you think of the state Senate seat? And did you know that Senator Bragdon isn't running again? And what would you think if I came back on the scene and ran for the seat? I got excellent feedback after a month. I realized, too, that I had the time to do it, the means to do it, and on June 4th, I went up to the State House and I filed for the seat on the very first day of the filing period.
What are people talking about?
All sorts of things. First of all, they're very concerned about their small businesses. Small business owners are very concerned about the future of their small businesses with regards to state regulation, taxes that are out of control, a lack of a right to work law here in New Hampshire.
Are you for right to work?
Oh, yeah. Am I for right to work? The answer is yes. And I sponsored right to work my very first term in the House, the 2003-2004 term. And that wasn't easy to do, to be a freshman legislator, sponsoring right to work and so forth. But I did it because I believe so strongly in it. And you may have seen, Kevin, that a recent study came out yet again that says that right to work states bring in more business.
I got the study right here.
Okay, well, there you go. I hadn't noticed that, but yeah, that's right. Bring in more business. Make for a business-friendly climate in their states. We don't want to lose businesses to right-to-work states. We want to gain them. What would make us even more outstanding is if New Hampshire adopts the right-to-work state, we'd be the only New England state with right-to-work. Again, a huge advantage to those who want to do business in the Northeast. So I'm very much in favor of that.
I recently had Regina Birdsell on the show.
Yes.
She's going to be a great senator when she gets elected, because I have a lot of good vibes about this.
Yeah.
But we were talking about a story out in her area where there was a store owner who was, they were going to cut some of the costs, and they had some of their friends, they were coming in, they were going to paint the building or get it all ready to get it ready to run. Yeah. And somebody from workers' comp came in and said, "Oh, you can't do that." Why not? Well, you can't do that. If somebody gets hurt, you're going to have a problem. And I got to think, wait a minute, whatever happened to the American dream?
Right.
What happened? Who are you to tell me my friends can't come in and clean up my store, paint the walls? Are you nuts?
Yes.
That's my visceral feeling towards this.
Right. Overregulation is the problem there.
Really?
And I know when the Republicans had control of the New Hampshire House, they studied all the various statutes that would impose a regulation on a business. And they did a good job. They were able to repeal some, but they have claimed it's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what else needs to be done. And that's another reason why I'm running, is to be a conservative voice for District 11 and to represent the views of those that I spoke to, those that encouraged me to run, and so forth. So I came, every candidate has a different style. Some announced right away they were running when Senator Bragdon announced he wasn't. Some took 24 hours. But me, I wanted to see if my views were in line with the district's and if the district thought I would represent their views well. And the answer I concluded was yes.
So small businesses, they're overregulation, right to work.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things that people are talking about?
It's interesting. I've heard about immigration, and I know that's primarily a federal issue that we're all concerned about and so forth, but there are things that state legislators can do as well with regards to immigration. For example, just this past legislative session, a bill came up to allow in-state tuition for illegal aliens.
I almost had, I was just beside myself.
Right.
Who's going to pay for that?
Right.
Now, that was a Democratic proposal, correct?
Yes, to my understanding, right.
It didn't pass the Senate. I believe it got shot down completely.
Correct.
I don't know if there was anybody in the Senate that was trying to support that. But I mean, are you kidding?
Right.
Have we lost our minds?
Well, even more so, you're right, who's going to pay for it, but this is actually a bill that would be giving a reward, essentially, for somebody who's breaking the law.
Right.
We all know that there are various avenues of legal citizenship and naturalization in our state, in our country, and so forth. We can't be rewarding those who break the law, no matter what the broken law is, and that bill would represent that. So there are things state legislators can do for sure with regards to that issue.
It seems, I'm not really sure what's going on. In my mind, I'm trying to process the last 6 months, 8 months.
Yeah.
I mean, when illegal aliens, that's what we used to call them, are in front of the White House protesting, and they're not being arrested. Instead, they're being exposed. They're demanding that we owe them something. But yet we do have a Marine in Mexico that's being, some would say, tortured, some beaten. He took a wrong turn. And all these illegals are just, there's a highway coming into America. They're being spread around everywhere. And we have a legislature that says, yeah, bring them up here to New Hampshire. We'll give them free tuition.
Yeah, yeah. And then you have to think, well, where's the incentive or where's the reward, essentially, for those who are abiding by the law?
Exactly.
I mean, for example, those who come to college in New Hampshire from our neighboring states of Massachusetts, Vermont, and such, where's their incentive? Where's their reward? it really calls into question equal justice under law, for sure, when you see bills like that. And that's why they need good candidates in the state Senate, such as yourself, myself, to make sure bills like that don't get further than just being introduced.
Medicaid expansion.
Yep, that's another one.
It drove me nuts that they passed it. It passed the Senate, and with the promise that the federal government was going to pay for it. I don't believe it for 1 minute. Listening to people talk about what Paul Ryan was saying about the budget and how that it's a myth that they're going to fund it at 100%.
Or if they do fund at 100 or any part of it, they can at any time take it back. And then what do we do? Right. Stuck with the bill, right?
We're stuck with the bill. And does that mean do we have to have an income tax?
Makes you wonder.
How are you going to pay for this?
Right. You know, this is why, Kevin, you know, good points here. And on the issues page of my website, it's a little more thorough than most candidates because I have various sections.
Right.
One of the sections is specific bills. I listed some bills that were taken up this past legislative session, and I tell people straight out how I would have voted on them if I were in the Senate during this past legislative session. Medicaid expansion is one of them. But also, and the answer is no, I would not have voted for that.
Thank you very much.
Another section on my issues page is my 5-point test. And I call it my 5-point test because I would put every bill that comes through my desk in the state Senate through this 5-point test on whether or not it was good legislation or not. And the 5 points are, and I'm circling back around to this, but my 5 points are, what does the bill cost? Something, as you know, as a legislator, you don't hear much about.
Right.
Does the bill raise any taxes or fees? Third is, and this is where it's relevant to our conversation about Medicaid expansion, what's the long-term effect of the bill? When I was in the legislature for 3 terms, 6 years, that was the one that really there was so little discussion on. Where's this bill going to get us in 6 months from now, in a year from now, in 10 years from now? I mean, it would really make legislators reconsider, I think, their thoughts and their original positions on bills if they thought it through the years.
Right.
My 4th point is, does the bill infringe on any individual rights and liberties? And the 5th point is, does the bill in any way expand government? Because if it does, that's the wrong direction that we're going into as a state. We should be working to reduce government. We should be working to outsource things into the private sector, build businesses, help nonprofits, let people have more money in order to donate to charities of their choices and so forth, as opposed to paying fees and taxes and whatnot to have other people manage it. So those are my 5 points. Every bill that comes through my desk, I'll put it through the 5. But with regards to the Medicaid expansion, you can see how many of my points that would have failed. But a big one is, what's the long-term effect? Who's going to pick up this bill in the long run?
One of the reasons that might be stifling business opportunity here in New Hampshire is because of the energy costs.
Yep.
What are your thoughts about that?
Energy costs? Yeah. We have to do what we can, of course, to provide affordable energy to those who need it. But we can't consider raising taxes or fees or whatnot in order to provide that.
Right. What about property rights?
Property rights I'm very big on. In 2005, 2006, you may remember the ever-famous Kelo decision, where in Connecticut, a woman's private property was actually going to be partially taken by a private company. The nation was outraged, just as they should have been. I was in the legislature at the time, and Speaker Scammon appointed me the chairman of the Special Committee on Eminent Domain. It was a committee that consisted of senators and representatives. We took all of the bills that came in with regards to changing the statutes and tightening the statutes to protect private property rights, as well as all the constitutional amendment languages. We looked at current statutes. We did a thorough overview to make sure that nothing like the Kelo decision ever occurs in New Hampshire. As a result of our work, we have a constitutional amendment now in the Constitution. We did our work very well, actually, to ensure that we have one of the toughest private property protection laws in the state. And it's in Part First, Article 12-A, and I'll read it to you just very briefly. It's very brief, Kevin. I know people don't hear the Constitution enough, so it's good to always repeat
It's very welcome on this show.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it reads as follows. And remember, it's a result of our committee work, but it was adopted by the voters of New Hampshire who voted in the constitutional amendment. And it reads as follows. No part of a person's property shall be taken by eminent domain and transferred directly or indirectly to another person if the taking is for the purpose of private development or other private use of the property.
So one of the things that comes to mind is this pipeline, this Tennessee pipeline that wants to go through the Hollis. Would that apply to that?
Yeah, well, that's something that has to be examined, is the eminent domain part of it.
Right.
And if it's a private company wanting to abscond private property, we can't have it.
What is the problem with the infrastructure that we have on Route 3? Can we develop that so that we can get energy to be buried or work its way all the way up to Canada, to the seacoast, to 101 and Route 3 all the way up? Can we invest in that? Would that make
I know there are
sense?
big proponents of that, that's for sure. I mean, but again, you have to study it very carefully.
Right.
With regards particular to private property
Sure, I
rights, that's
understand
the
that.
big part of it.
Right.
And then again, where does the funding come from and so forth, and would any taxes or fees have to be raised in order to fund this kind of project?
One of the things people are concerned about also is at Public Service, they have a plant up in Bow, I believe it is.
Okay.
Yeah, and they want to shut that down, the coal plant. There's been talk about that without a plan B, which means the energy costs are going to be going up.
Right.
I don't understand the logic behind that.
No, exactly. And you have to wonder, why do they want to shut down? I mean, think of all the jobs that will be lost and so forth.
They spend millions to upgrade that,
Right.
the scrubbers. It's up to date. The emissions are low. Why are we shooting ourselves in the foot?
Right, and again, see, that's another reason to go to Concord and really examine, why are we losing businesses? Why are we shutting down things like this? Why are businesses forced to shut down? We have to understand really what we're doing with regards to our business climate and how to make it better.
A lot of people are you know, if you've watched this show at length at any time, we've had people that were struggling with family court, with the Attorney General's office, on many different levels where people are feeling, not only is it the economy, their buying power is limited, but they're also feeling, in some sectors, oppressed. For example, Jeff Frost. I don't know if you know the story about Jeff Frost, how that you know, he had to appeal all the way up to the Supreme Court because he was falsely accused. He won. It cost him $185,000.
Yeah.
And the Attorney General's office came to our committee of redress of grievance. We misinterpreted the law. Ouch.
Yeah.
How do we remedy that? Mike Gill is another one. He's talking, you know, you see his flashing signs. He's concerned with a lot of the things that are, the common people can't do. If he's a multimillionaire and he can't find justice in our system, how can the common citizen find justice when they don't have any money? Are you hearing anything about that?
That's interesting. I do hear about that, and people who are often involved in very arduous, expensive, and time-consuming legal battles.
Right.
And you wonder, and then they turn out that they're in the right. My goodness, they spent all this time and effort, time lost from work and so forth, in order to prove their case, and here they were right all along.
Right.
Well, you know, I served on the Judiciary Committee for 3 terms, and as part of that, twice I was involved in one way or another in House addresses, which is essentially the study of the potential or the possible removal of specific Superior Court judges. And that's one way, certainly, to keep watch over our judiciary and be sure that mistakes like that don't happen repeatedly. Citizens have the right to ask their legislators to file legislation like that, and then there's
For impeachment.
Right, that's essentially what it is, correct. And then it could be studied that way. So that's certainly one way to go at it. But you know, you mentioned a word there, you said oppression. And it's interesting, it happens all the time, not just in the family courts, but in other ways.
Sure.
I live in Merrimack, and as you know, we've been dealing with tolls and the issue of tolls for a very long time. And I want to say on the air, too, I know you broadcast in Nashua, our Nashua neighbors have always been very kind to us on the toll issue and very understanding and sympathetic in a lot of ways, too. I remember in the House, I could always count on my Nashua legislative neighbors to vote with us. But one time we had a toll booth protest. It was a penny protest, and it was organized by
I don't remember this, but okay.
Yeah, it was organized by some those who were active in town a few years ago, and they wanted everybody to go through the toll booth and throw in pennies for their token as opposed to the token. But anyway, I was invited to speak to that rally and to that protest. And I brought with me, and remember this is early on, this is probably 2004, 2003, a pile of Gadsden flags. And we all know what that is. It's the yellow flag with a coiled up snake, and below it read the words, "Don't tread on me." And when I brought them to this rally, it was funny because people kind of flocked to me. I don't think they were too familiar with the flag at that point, and they wanted to know if I was selling them. I said, no, I'm not.
Pre-Tea Party or modern day Tea Party.
Right, and that's why I say I was Tea Party before there was a Tea Party. But I brought them, and some people thought I was selling them. I said, no, I'm not selling them. I'm just distributing. But when I got up to speak at the rally, because again, I was a state rep, I said, I have with me a Gadsden flag. And it's not always a happy day when you bring that out, because it is a symbol of government oppression, of which we are feeling here in Merrimack, being taxed essentially over and over again to have access to the highway. So you always have to be on guard for that, because it happens. It happened when the Gadsden flag was first established way back when. It happened, with this toll booth protest and so forth. It happens. You have to be constantly mindful of when the government oversteps its bounds.
Right. Speaking of which, in protest, there was a recent bill that passed the Senate that was disturbing, because on one hand, we have our First Amendment right to protest, and they created a buffer zone. Yeah. For those that were protesting, at abortion clinics, or I call them mills. I'm not pro-abortion on any level, and yet at the same time, they didn't limit anybody else. It was specifically designed to limit that. There was a 25-foot buffer zone or something to that effect. In the meantime, there was some legislation that was being challenged in Massachusetts, and they was going through the courts, and it was something very similar. Instead of waiting for that, they rushed through this bill. Now, it's going to be challenged. Right. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I'm glad that it was challenged, first of all. That's one of the bills I mentioned on my website under specific bills, along with Medicaid expansion. If I were in the Senate and a buffer bill came up like that, I would vote no on that very clearly. I happen to know personally people who were affected by that bill, because they make it a sometimes weekly, monthly habit or ritual, essentially, to go to these abortion clinics and stand there. And what do? They silently pray. They're silently there just to show support for the unborn. They're there in solidarity with one another to support each other with regards to...
They're not calling these women...
Right. Exactly. So exactly, what is that bill designed to do? Move people on public property to another part of public property? Right. I never heard of such a thing. So there's no doubt that that court made the right decision in order to throw that bill out. And I hope the same fate happens to the one that was here in New Hampshire. Right, and it's just disturbing that they would actually even come up with that, and yet, when the unions were up protesting the right to work a while back, we all went through the gauntlet. They had their blowhorns and their fists, and it was very uncomfortable, but they had a right to protest, and I applaud them. Go for it. But I've never seen anything like that in front of the Planned Parenthood or anything like that. As of recent, I think in the past there was a lot of acrimony. I think people have toned down and have learned that you need to change hearts instead of screaming at people. You're not going to change hearts that way. Right. It's just not. And there's nothing wrong with praying for people in public. I just find that detestable that they would come up with a bill to disallow that. Right. You really wonder what the history of that is. Because, again, it doesn't solve a problem, because no problem was there to be solved. Right. So you wonder, it's just another reminder, I guess, that the Planned Parenthood and the NARAL special interest groups in New Hampshire are very much alive and well funded here in New Hampshire to get behind a bill like that. Which is unfortunate, because silencing people's voice, it's your First Amendment right. Come on. It's your First Amendment right. Why are people trying to silence other people? You should be doing just the opposite. Yes. And giving people a voice and letting them know they're heard. That actually can displace anger. Giving people a voice. It's critical. You mentioned the life issue. I, too, am pro-life and worked on many pieces of legislation related to that when I was in the House. Parental notification, for example, passed when I was in the House, and I was happy to support that and get involved in the debate on the floor and in my committee. Also, we passed a safe haven law in New Hampshire, It's probably not a very well-known law, but a very important one. And what it is there are designated places in New Hampshire, for example, a fire station, a police station, a hospital, where if somebody has a baby, a newborn baby, there's a time period where they could essentially drop them off at these designated places.
Instead of a front door, more of a secure place.
Right, exactly. And they would not be held liable for any kind of neglect or discharge or anything like that. And I tell you, you may think, well, gee, how could we even need a law like that in New Hampshire? We do. And about a year ago, I got a call from another co-sponsor to that bill that a baby boy, brand new baby boy, was left at a hospital in the Portsmouth area and has benefited from that law, a law I take great pride in being a co-sponsor of.
Years back, I was actually in an orphanage myself for St. Peter's. We were there for about 4 years. But it was a place where people would, some kids were actually dropped off and the parents never came back, but they were taken care of. You don't see those anymore. But I applaud you for that type of bill, because there are people that are going through difficult times and they don't know what to do. And today you're hearing so many horror stories of people just doing the unthinkable. And it's good that they know this, that about that. I'm going to change the subject to one other one that's a really hot topic with a lot of people, and that's Common Core.
Yes.
It's the topic of the nation, it seems, and people are very concerned about their education of their children. A lot of the manufacturers have left the state in the past because the kids that are graduating from high school aren't work ready. They can't do simple arithmetic. And what we're hearing about Common Core, well, that solves this, but it doesn't. They're preparing kids for something else instead of getting work ready.
Yeah.
And it's top down.
It
takes away local control. I've heard the arguments from these hearings. Well, it doesn't take local control. We're not doing any type of curriculum, but you're mandating certain testing, which the curriculum has to go towards.
Yeah.
And it was introduced into New Hampshire. Four people basically said, this is the way it's going to be. We're going to get some federal funds, and here you go. Never went to the legislature, really, for a vote. Here you go, people.
Yeah.
That's not the New Hampshire way.
Right.
Now, I said all that to say, what do you think?
Yeah, well, you did a good job, actually, of almost giving my answer, but therein lies the problem. It's a top-down.
Right.
I call it a window shade issue. You take it from the top, and you pull it down. It's constructed, it's architect on the federal level, and then it comes down to the local level. Not the way it should be, really not the way much should be. It should start at the local level, education in particular, and work its way up. So that's a big problem. I know in the past legislative session, perhaps it was even this year or the year before, there was a bill to abolish Common Core, and a Merrimack state rep sponsored that bill. The bill failed, it died in the House. But I think that there are ways to keep the conversation going. Right. And that's a big part of this. I think that I'm not big on committees or commissions or things like that, but perhaps in this instance, something like that needs to be done. Bring parents who are against Common Core, which I hear from all the time, bring superintendents, teachers, maybe even a student or two together on a regular basis to discuss Common Core, what the situation is, and ways that we can go about the possible repeal or getting around it if parents aren't happy.
I'm running out of time, so I'm going to just say, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, my website is votemooney.com, and it has my full bio on there, which is very extensive. My background is pretty much in 3 parts: education management, my terms in the House as a legislator, and my years as a party activist for the Republican Party. In addition to that is the issues section, which I touched upon today. And also I have a steering committee of about 30 plus or so residents across the District 11 that are backing me publicly. It consists of public officials, former public officials, single mothers, businessmen, engineers, a great cross-section. I'm happy to have their support. Also, my contact information is all over the website, so if anybody would like to email or call, I'd be more than happy to take their questions, inquiries, comments, and so forth. But votemooney.com is a good way.
Votemooney.com. And thank you very much.
And good luck to you, Kevin. If we both win, we'll be sitting next to one another in the New Hampshire Senate.
Be a good team. Good team. Absolutely. And thanks for watching Speak Up. I appreciate you watching the show. I hope that this covers the issues that might be concerning you. And please contact Maureen if you're interested in helping out with the campaign, and as well as mine. That's a little plug for myself. So until next week, thanks for watching Speak Up. If you would like to be a guest on Speak Up, please contact me at speakupnh@gmail.com. We'll help you be heard.
Every day, citizens around the country are faced with new dilemmas that affect them profoundly. Whether it's injustice, discrimination, falling through the cracks, scandal and cronyism, balances of power, ethics, religious freedoms, state versus citizens, and unfunded mandates, and the list goes on and on and on. Welcome to Speak Up. It's directed at those who have fallen through the cracks, and it gives them a voice. It's your turn to speak up, to stand up and fight back.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.